Hey, happy Halloween, everybody. Welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast, presented to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Johnny Venerable, joined by Kliff Kingsbury with an Xbox headset on. Vintage Damien Anderson from his playing days also joins us on this spooky Monday. We got a lot of scary shit to talk about, and I'm not referring to demons and Frankenstein. I'm talking about the state of the Arizona Cardinals following their loss yesterday. And old Kliff Kingsbury, what do you have to say for yourself after another mismanaged game, Kliff?
Yeah, Johnny, I just think that was a heck of a football team, and we just didn't execute as well as we'd like. Play calling, we could have played better. Execution, I need to call better plays. I just think we could have been more on task, but we just need to find a way to score more points.
Kliff, one more question. Are you going to relinquish your play calling duties anytime soon?
That's going to be day to day. That's something that we don't know about right now, but that's a day to day thing.
Tremendous stuff from Kliff Kingsbury, current Cardinal head coach, maybe future OC at Auburn. We'll see about that. But in all actuality here, welcome to the show. Happy Halloween. We're having fun on a Monday, a trade deadline Monday. The Cardinals have made a couple of more moves ahead of the trade deadline. Will they make any more? That is what we're here to discuss with you all. We've got people in the comments. Thank you for choosing to spend your Halloween evening with us here at PHNX Cardinals. And let's get down to brass tacks. Cardinals haven't made any moves yet off of yesterday's loss to the Minnesota Vikings. The question we're proposing, should they make any moves? Should they be buyers? Should they potentially be sellers? Or should they stand pat? Brack, I'm going to kick it to you. What should the Cardinals do after yesterday's disappointing loss? Should they buy, sell, or hold?
I think that this team should stay relatively the same. I think Steve Keim has given this team enough talent to contend in just a division that's in complete flux right now. I mean, as bad as the Arizona Cardinals have played, this team is still in a wide open NFC West, and they have the talent on this roster. I think that the offense, you should be encouraged despite the mistakes the last couple of weeks. It's played a lot better football with DeAndre Hopkins returning. Like Kliff said, just need to play better. But as far as giving up, draft capital, as far as giving up maybe a 2 and a 5 like we saw go to the Chicago Bears in exchange for Roquan Smith, I think that this team has tremendously underachieved and hasn't earned the right to go out there and be buyers at the trade deadline.
Guys, we saw what a difference maker can do on defense yesterday firsthand with, is it Kadarius Smith with, multiple sacks?
Zadarius,
right?
yes.
Zadarius Smith with multiple sacks. The Arizona Cardinals need some type of injection of dominance at that defensive line or outside linebacker position. I mean, there's no way in hell, looking what San Francisco just did, the balance that Seattle's having, and you look at the Rams, just a talented football team as well. To be able to compete in your division, you need to be able to get to the quarterback. And if you can get a difference maker, I absolutely believe that the Cardinals they're always looking to put the best product on the football field and a chance to win the football games. I think they do need to make that if they can get a guy like Bradley Chubb. But to your point, Bo, I just want to add the carrot piece here. They are talented offensively. I think that they could do some things. I think it's a bit of an injury bug right now, but I do like the talent that they overall have with the core. My issues aren't really with the players. It's more so of the play calling and the time management issues.
Jason in the chat, speaking my language, stay on target. And I would continue to add, if it was me personally, if you could get a piece that's under contract for next season and can be part of your nucleus, your core moving forward, and we've used this comparison a lot, if you can get a Leonard Williams type-esque player that the New York Giants did from the New York Jets once upon a time, it's part of the regime now, you do that. You look past this season, Daron Payne, somebody that you can build around moving forward. As Damien mentioned, Bradley Chubb. I know those guys are due a bunch of money, but they're premium players in their mid-20s. What I don't want to see this Cardinal team do, I don't want to give up draft picks for somebody over the age of 30. They're not at the point where they can hedge their bet on a Von Miller-esque type of trade because there's no guarantee. We're hopeful, but there's no guarantee this team is going to see the playoffs or win a division title this year. So, I'm of the mindset You buy if the right offer comes along, and there are ways to improve this team, but I'm with Bo Brack, aka Kliff Kingsbury. They have underperformed this year. The talent on this roster, and this is not me shilling for Steve Keim. I put out a tweet earlier today, gentlemen, basically saying that a lot of these young players for the Cardinals that were drafted by Steve Keim over the last couple of years are playing well. We'll talk about it. Isaiah Simmons, Josh Jones played well yesterday. Marco Wilson, Byron Murphy's having a career year, as is Zach Allen. The draft picks are hitting. They're just not hitting as fast as the Cardinals need them to be. I think the Cardinal roster, and I know Michael Bidwell feels this way, is a playoff caliber roster. It is significantly more talented than the team that they're facing Sunday, the Seattle Seahawks, who have a 2-game better record than them. They have a $45 million quarterback. That's why, to me, Bo, it comes down to, if you're Steve Keim, if you're Michael Bidwell, why am I pouring more assets into a team that is already underachieving, that doesn't look prepared to play? Robbie Anderson is not playing. He barely logged any snaps yesterday. He was just acquired. Trayvon Mullen was just acquired. He's been here for 6 weeks. He's not playing. Am I missing something here?
No, I mean, I think that becomes part of the hurdles as far as acquiring talent and then getting them involved in the offensive, defensive side of the football. I mean, we're seeing rookies that are still playing really low snaps, and guys like Cameron Thomas who are playing well in their limited opportunities. Majay Sanders, I think he can make a case for more playing time over some of these veterans who aren't, getting to the quarterback. But I mean, when we see the reports today, what Bradley Chubb would fetch as far as return, they're talking Jets, they're talking Dolphins, and they're talking a first-round pick. Do you want to give that up? I know that we haven't seen much return as far as those first-round picks up until.
Play to win the game, Coach.
Herm,
you play
easy, Herm.
to win.
You play to be unemployed.
Look. I mean, I agree with that. I would love to see them add somebody at the pass rush spot, but at this point, guys can't even get on the field.
You're saying
it's a hot ticket. It's a hot ticket, but at the same token, is Kliff going to play the guys enough for them to make an impact? Do they trust them? Because trust is something that's talked to about each and every week with this coaching staff, and why players aren't seeing the field. I mean, a guy like Greg Dortch, I know he made a huge error yesterday for the Arizona Cardinals in special teams, but as far as being on the offensive playing field and getting snaps and what he's earned, and then to see his snaps reduced even after finding the end zone on Thursday Night Football, it's head scratching. And I don't even know if you can really back it up with the data that you have. So what are you going to tell a fan base if you go out and you spend a first-round pick on bringing in a pass rusher and we don't see him play for 2 weeks, and then the Arizona Cardinals go 1-1 and they got another smaller margin for error as far as trying to make a crowded NFC playoff picture?
I'm 100% with Bo. I don't have the confidence outside of the Kenyon Drake acquisition. I mean, I can't remember one. And I guess to a lesser extent, Zach Ertz, that was immediate plug and play. I mean, Marcus Golden had been a part of this franchise. That was a different scenario. But rotational cornerback and Trayvon Mullen can't see the field. Robbie Anderson, who is desperately needed with size and speed on the outside, can't see the field. I mean, the only move I think I would be confident in, Damien, is rotational defensive tackle, edge rusher, because that's a little bit more seamless. Go get after the quarterback, a little bit more plug and play. Outside of that, I'm not trading for a center, because my center is not going to be ready for multiple weeks to be able to handle the snap count. Rodney Hudson, it was reported today by Bo Brack, won't play this weekend. According to Kliff Kingsbury, he's turned into the ultimate vegetable. So it's ride or die with Billy Price. So, Damien, I'm with you. If the only way I'm making a deal, can I get an edge rusher? Can I get a pass rusher, up front along the front seven?
And guys, and to your points, we talk about familiarity, right? Bradley Chubb has familiarity with Vance Joseph back in Denver, right? In 2018, I think he had 12 and a half sacks. I think the unique aspect with the Kliff Kingsbury offense, and we talk about bringing guys in, and you mentioned Johnny Center or anywhere on the offense, right? The transition that's taken Robbie Anderson, the difficult transition that has taken Robbie Anderson to get on the football field. No one's really been in Kliff Kingsbury's offense in the NFL, right? So everyone that comes in is experiencing a new type of verbiage, nomenclature, whatever you want to call it in terms of, game planning. So there is going to be a learning curve there. But I think defensively, given the blood in the water, what we've seen, I think that everyone can identify that you need to be competitive, especially in your division, in stopping the run, which was a big problem yesterday, and how you match up against tight ends. But, Kyler does need help. That is an issue with Billy Price. We saw there, yesterday after that turnover and that bad snap that they had to, settle for a field goal, which ended up being, a problem for the Cardinals late in the game.
Arizona Animal in the chat. Billy, the price is wrong. Love that. That's so spot on. All right. So I think we're all in agreement. The Cardinals, if the right deal came along, maybe you pursue it. Let's do the flip side. J.J. Watt's a free agent to be. He may end his career after the season. We don't know. We don't know if he's going to retire. Just had, welcomed a new member to his family last week. Had a monster game yesterday. 2 sacks. He's still performing at a high level. He's got 4.5 sacks to lead the Cardinals. What would it take for the Arizona Cardinals to entertain trading J.J. Watt? I don't think personally they would do it. I think it would be too much of a hit from a marketing standpoint. I think J.J. Watt does a lot for this franchise off the field. But Bo Brack, I'm going to flip it to you. If somebody called offering up picks for number 99, what would it take to get it done in your mind?
Man, it's so tough because what he does transcends the playing field. And it
does.
When this team needs all the goodwill it could possibly get surrounding, from the fan base. If they sent J.J. Watt packing between now and tomorrow, I mean, some people would understand it from acquiring a pick standpoint, but then you look at Steve Keim's draft resume.
It can't be.
I don't see a way that you could spend that to the fan base and then also back up the extensions that you just gave out this offseason at the same time. I just think that if the expectation is to win this season, to contend in this crazy division that nobody's kind of taken a grasp of, and to send J.J. Watt, like you couldn't spoon feed that to anybody. You couldn't spend it anyway. He's your leader in your sacks. He's one of the leaders, vocal guys in the locker room that says the right thing, does the right thing. I mean, as far as guys who are actually walking the walk and talking the talk, there aren't a bunch of guys who can combine all of that in the total package. J.J. Watt right now is, outside of the frustrations earlier with the calf injury and not being available, but he's been solid in his second season for the Arizona Cardinals.
And I would say if the value is higher at that same level or above in terms of a player, impact player, why not? It's a business. I think that J.J. Watt would understand and, do the best for he and his family. But for picks, I think that you're taking the position that we're retooling for the future. And I think with all the trades and acquisitions that Steve Keim and company has made, they're trying to win right now. You don't get Hollywood Brown and trade your second round pick to get Hollywood Brown. You don't go out there and get Robbie Anderson when you see Hollywood Brown go down if you're not trying to insert him into, inject some life into your offense, right?
Yeah. So
I think that they're trying to win right now, and they're in a good position because the NFC West isn't that good. So I say if there's value there, or maybe it's a Deron Payne and a Chubb type player in addition to some picks, that could be a possibility, but straight for picks, I don't know how that would go over with Cardinals fans or anybody associated with the organization.
You would be signaling to your fan base that the season is over, and that is not the message that the Cardinals, Steve Keim, Michael Bidwell want to emulate. I mean, you do not have a plethora of quality defensive linemen. You have 2, and you can't go and trade one. It's not like the position of outside linebacker where you're going to say, I want to free up time for Cameron Thomas, Myzee Sanders. That's why they cut Devon Kennard. Fans can understand that. We want to see the next generation of Cardinal defenders. Watt is the best player they have in their front 7 right now. He's playing exceptionally well. He's gone under the radar as probably a borderline Pro Bowler this year. He's on pace for almost 10 sacks. He is giving you what you needed from him when he signed that big, massive contract on top of all the leadership attributes that you knew you were going to get in the offseason. So no one's going, and then part of it is no one's going to give you a first-round pick for J.J. Watt. We just saw Roquan Smith, even though he's off the ball linebacker, he's in his mid-20s, go for a 2nd and a 5th. So to me, I think in a perfect scenario, if you were going to trade him and the team, let's say, was 1-6, let's say they were having a Lions-esque type of season, I would need some kind of a quality day 2 pick. But it's not worth the message that you're sending to the fans, which is we're punting on the season. I love Michael Dogby. He's not JJ Watt. He does not deserve, playing time over Watt. So the Cardinals, are, in my opinion, rightfully so, are going to ride this thing out with Platt and company.
I love that comment. My kid's going to run over here and tell me to calm the F down. Yeah, I love in the chat, Jalen Blair, I think, makes a great point as far as JJ would have to ask to be moved, right? And that would be a sign that he doesn't think that they have enough to do this. And I think he's too proud to say that. And it's not happening. He just had a new kid. Damien, I mean, you've lived the professional player life. I mean, it's not as simple as, you get traded to another organization and you just show up for work the next day. There's a lot that goes into it. And I can't imagine that J.J. Watt wants to do that. I'm sure he's pretty comfortable here in the desert.
I mean, yeah, comfort is key, guys, but you forget they're not dealing like how we're dealing. Their logistics is, hey, I got a guy that knows a guy. Everything's going to get done. The owner's going to send a private jet. I'm going to be out there. Do I foresee it happening? No, I think it's a far stretch because, as Johnny said, it's signaling to the fan base that we're not trying to win right now. We're trying to prep for the future. That's not why he was brought here. That's not why you extend Keim and Kliff. That's not why you extend Kyler, right? That's not why you make those offseason acquisitions that they've done. But I think that you have to be aggressive because you've identified through 8 games what your team is. And I think that it's a team that, the secondary is talented, but the defensive line has some big issues in their inability to get to the quarterback consistently and stop the run. And guys, Dalvin Cook was cooking yesterday.
He was cooking.
He had a day, but I will say, Johnny, Bo, that they did make some adjustments in the second half and were able to get the ball back. And I know we're going to get into that, but what's that, Bo? I can't hear you. What'd you say? Run the play?
Yeah.
Hurry it up.
I want a wide receiver screen here, Kyler.
Timeout. We need a timeout right after a timeout when the play clock's expiring. We also need to check the stats.
Did you say timeout? Did you say
timeout? Timeout. Calm. Hey, Bo, calm the fuck down. Calm the fuck down, Bo. All right, so here's what I want to do. I want to pull up some statistics here. This is from ESPN. Win pass rush rate. Look at this. The top-rated defensive tackles pass rush wise, couple familiar names there. Zach Allen, first overall. He's the number 1 defensive tackle in the NFL, rushing the passer, followed quickly by J.J. Watt at number 3, only eclipsed by Jeffrey Simmons, who's a Pro Bowler. The Cardinals are getting what they need from 2 out of their 7 front 7 players. It's everybody else. It's the bookend pass rushers. It's the nose tackle without Rashad Lawrence. That is where this team is hurting. But Zach Allen, J.J. Watt are the heart of your front 7, and trading Watt away, not a great message. And I think it would also stunt the development of Zach Allen, who is ready for a big payday this offseason. You can bank on that. You can also bank on new customers on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Betting and making any $5 NBA moneyline bet, getting $200 if your team wins. Hope you're making money on the Phoenix Suns, not the Cardinals, but the Suns. You can do that on DraftKings. You can also boost your winnings 100%. DraftKings step-up same-game parlays. Do it tonight. Have some success on Monday Night Football. Tell us about it in the comments. PHNX Bets Daily live every day at noon. Myself, Shane Diefenbach. It is simple, friends. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use that promo code PHNX. That's promo code PHNX on DraftKings Sportsbook app. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See those show notes for details.
Yeah, we got to give some credit where it's due. I mean, like Kliff Kingsbury does every press conference, we got to give the other team credit. We got to give Four Peaks all the credit. They're hosting our all-U.S. and Mexico World Cup matches at the H Street Pub, the original OG location. Enjoy beer specials, giveaways, guest appearances, and more. Check out the link in the show notes. Register for free. We're going to up our execution. Our play calling is going to be a lot better because we got some Four Peaks World Cup match watch parties. You got to be 21 years or older. You got to enjoy it responsibly, Johnny.
So we love our friends at Pro Football Focus. We love analytics here. They don't tell the whole story, but if you want some context, they do some great work. And this is a segment we do every week. Notable PFF grades, some good, some not so good. And there are a couple numbers that I wanted to showcase, gentlemen. We talk about this young core for the Cardinals being kind of the saving grace here. You should feel pretty good about some of the names and the grades you see on here. First and foremost, the highest graded Cardinal yesterday wasn't DeAndre Hopkins, who did kick ass at an 84. It was Isaiah Simmons, 87.7, which includes a pass rush win rate of 96%. He is playing right now, gentlemen, number 9 at a Pro Bowl level linebacker. The strip sack last week, the interception for a touchdown the week before. Finally, we're seeing this kid out of Clemson, Bo. Freight train from hell is Isaiah Simmons. He is, on Halloween, a defense's worst nightmare.
Offense's worst nightmare.
Offense's worst nightmare.
He was the worst nightmare for the Cardinals for the longest time, being the 8th overall pick and waiting for him to pop. And he's arrived. And he told us today, he spoke to the media, and he says that he's just getting started. That's got to excite you. He's the last 2 weeks, he hasn't been content with the Cardinals' defensive performance, and you shouldn't be. I mean, sure, he made some game-changing plays, but he doesn't feel like, hey, he's going to just sit on his personal statistics as a win for the team. So they're 1-1. They can definitely play better, and he's playing at a very high level, and it's exciting to think about what he could bring to the table with even more snaps. He still isn't playing 100% of the snaps for the Arizona Cardinals. You got to think, what the hell's taking him off the field? But you saw the pass rush. You saw him, he even said that his full intention was not to sack Kirk Cousins. It was to get that ball out and create a game-changing turnover, and he did that. It's Damien, I mean, you could speak to this. There's some freaks out there, but guys who have the intention of doing something on the NFL playing field and then just doing it, I mean, it's unreal what he's capable of doing when he's given the opportunity.
Yeah, he's a freak. I mean, he's what we talk about, Bo, that difference maker, that guy that really is a matchup problem wherever he lines up. I think that, his only issue that we've seen is when he matches up with very athletic, whether it be slot receivers or tight ends. However, is when he could play.
Which he shouldn't be asked to do.
Fair enough, but when you run a 4-3 and you're touted and you're drafted that early, they're going to give you a lot of responsibilities, right? And I think that it's the coach, Vance Joseph, feeling him out in terms of what his capabilities and what he's comfortable with, and where can we get him on the field, guys. I think that's most important. When we saw him last week get that interception for a touchdown, he was just spying. It wasn't like he was guarding a person. He was like in a zone type situation or being aggressive, rushing the passer, and was able to have the wherewithal, the intelligence to, as Bo said, I'm not going for the sack. I'm trying to get this ball back, which he did. So when you have a player that's a difference maker and you see that those stats collectively reflecting them that playing well, I think that was understandable. What's the problem is what should be glaring. If we could get that stat back up, it's, Lecky Fotu, being at, roughly under, 30%. I mean, that just demonstrates that you're getting, demolished, every play. To me, I don't know.
He's getting washed. He's getting washed every play. If you watch the tape.
I know it's a difficult job, Johnny, Bo, to play defensive line in the National Football League, but you get checks too. There's a sense of pride there, and I know that these guys are trying to do the job, but it just seems too easy at times for the opposition to be able to run the ball and do whatever they want, because it looked like that first half.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, we're joined by multiverse Kliff Kingsbury here, going over some PFF grades. Producer Leah, can we see that graphic one more time? I want to point out something else here. Again, Fotu, barf-worthy grade, 29.8. Lecky's a backup. He blocked a kick yesterday, a field goal, which was great. He's not a starting player in the NFL right now. You know who is a starting player that needs to get time eventually is Josh Jones, 70.4. But his grade against blocking edge rushers in pass protection, 86. He's not a great run grader yet. He's not a road grader. That'll come in time. But he is unequivocally a starting high-end tackle in this league today. Cardinal fans should feel great. I know there's a lot that you shouldn't feel great about this morning. We get that. You've got he and DJ Humphries locked in for next year and the year after. I would feel great about Josh Jones with this team, what he brings to the table, his athleticism, his ability to stay healthy. I can't wait, Bo, for the former Houston product to take the reins for Kelvin Beachum next year.
Yeah, it should be excited about that, going into his fourth and final year of his rookie deal next year. Maybe they'll even get him at a hopefully Steve Keim gets him on a nice extension beforehand, so we're not looking at what we're doing with Byron Murphy, who's playing so well, and Zach Allen, who are playing so well. They're just making more and more money each and every week. But yeah, that was solid. And, Brian, yeah, absolutely. I feel like we could execute a little bit better on those grades, but, we're just going to get back to practice on Wednesday and try to get better each and every day. I think that, as far as Lecky goes, maybe that's where you try to upgrade. Just just try to find an NFL caliber defensive tackle between now and 1 o'clock Arizona time tomorrow. You spend you don't have a 5th round pick. Do you spend a 4th round pick on that? I don't know what the rules are as far as the Trayvon Mullen deal, where it could be a 6th or 7th. What if either one of those is available? So if you can find a day 2 pick or a day 3 pick that you could send to a team that's out of it, maybe a Colts or some team that's just, they know that they're not playing for this year. Could you find an NFL caliber tackle at nose tackle? That would be huge for this team.
I agree with that.
It's needed. Guys, it's needed.
Yeah.
No question.
You're not going to get better by standing pat, and you're waiting on Rashard Lawrence to come back. I think they probably feel like there are some defensive linemen that would help them now, and I think that the advance of all the positions, defensive line is the most interchangeable. You could just get somebody to come in, play 30, 40% of the snaps, help out on early rundowns where it's obvious, and you can get run-stuffing defensive linemen fairly cheap. So I think we're all on the same page. If they're going to make a move, gentlemen, it needs to be for a defensive lineman. I think they've priced themselves out of the edge rusher market. I think that's going to be too competitive. I think Bradley Chubb, Jerry Hughes, some of these guys are just going to be in the market for the teams, let's be honest, that are in playoff position now, that the Cardinals were in last year when they got Zach Ertz, because they felt like that was the missing piece. The Vikings, the Eagles, there's a reason those teams are going after, the Robert Quinns of the world. I think the Cardinals, just another under-the-radar defensive lineman, I think would be a big help to them. It's been a big help for me, helping me stay hydrated, gentlemen. Liquid Death. We were watching the game yesterday. I was perspirating left and right. I had to grab a Liquid Death, and boy, did that kick my thirst's ass. And you may start noticing there are some strange tall boys of beer in the bottled water section of your local stores. We've seen little kids drinking them, pregnant women drinking them. No, that's not true. It's not beer. It's actually called Liquid Death. It's mountain spring water from the Alps. It's fantastic. Why do they call it Liquid Death? Well, friends, it's because it's going to brutally murder your thirst, and their infinitely recyclable tall boy cans can help bring death to plastic bottles everywhere. You can also donate 10% of the profits from every can sold to help kill plastic production. Again, we chug them on the reg. They're fantastic. Regular water, sparkling water, whatever you need. Get free shipping on all water and merch at liquiddeath.com/PHNX. That's liquiddeath.com/PHNX, or find Liquid Death at your local Target, Fry's, Sprouts, wherever you get your beverages.
Yeah, you know what, guys? Some penalties and some bad furniture choices really got us off schedule, and we're going to get back on schedule. We're going to spruce up our home with More Furniture's fall sale at morefurniture.com. You can receive a $100 gift card for every $1,000 you spend. That's got a lot of juice, as Kliff Kingsbury says. You'll receive a $100 gift card for every $1,000 you spend. Go to morefurniture.com. That's morfurniture.com.
Yeah, and great point by the Icon 20634 in the chat. Bad thing is the Commanders, even at last place, they're 500. These fans in the DMV believe, and now Pain and Sweat are probably off the market. And we speculated this, Icon, before the weekend. There are too many teams hanging around 500. There are only very few teams that believe they're truly out of it. You could talk about Houston. Certainly the Bears are going in a different direction, even though they have the same record as the Cardinals. So I get that a lot of people are hopeful of a robust trade deadline, Bo, but to me, it's like there's too much parity right now. And if you're an owner and you're a general manager, you don't want to give, a negative connotation with your franchise that you're ending your season early.
Yeah, it's crazy, what Taylor Heineke's been able to do and infuse into that Commanders offense, and that now they've won back-to-back games, and this team believes. And, I think any team that has a handful of wins in the NFC is still in it. And the Arizona Cardinals are one of those teams. It's I thought about this today. It's like one of these teams that is around 4 wins right now, probably is going to make some noise in the postseason. Now, I'm not saying that this team here in the desert is going to do that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not trying to blow smoke up for you. But realistically, you got to think that one of these struggling NFC teams is going to string together a couple good games in the wild card round, the divisional round, is going to be playing for the conference championship and can find their way to the Super Bowl. We've seen it happen before. It's just this conference is in such disarray that teams don't know if they're buyers, if they're sellers. They know they've played some good games. They know they've played some shitty games, but they know that also they can't feed their fan base trading away talent when they're technically in the thick of a playoff race. You got to look at the bottom rung in the NFL. You got to look at the Texans. You got to look at the Bears. You got to look at these teams that are already starting to trade off parts, like Chicago's done with two of their front seven members, Quinn and Roquan Smith, and then maybe a guy like Jerry Hughes from Houston. I got to imagine he's going to be dealt between now and tomorrow. So, you see if you can, you just don't want to miss out to the Rams and the 49ers. That would be an epic failure in Steve Keim if that were to happen.
And the Rams are shopping. The Rams are trying to get pass rushers, receivers, running backs. The Rams at what are they? 3-5, 3-4? They're right by the Cardinals by a half a game. They're buying. They're trying to win now, Damien. And what kind of a message does it send to the Cardinals fan base if you're Steve Keim and you watch San Francisco get Christian McCaffrey, who San Francisco had the same record as you yesterday. You haven't played the Niners yet. And if the Rams go out and they make a move, the Seahawks are rebuilding. They've got a better record than you. Do you think Steve Keim feels a sense of urgency to say, shit, we're in last place. Like, I got to do something? Damien, can you hear us, bud?
John. I mean, that's the pressure of the NFL. I mean, you play for wins. I mean, that's your job. That's what enabled him to get that extension as well as Kliff. But I think to go back to your original question about the Rams, I mean, what does he think? I mean, they've demonstrated to the whole NFL that system works. Hey, we're one or two pieces away from getting guys. And I know that we've talked about this at length, but, Von Miller last year, we see with the Buffalo Bills and the impact that he has in getting one of those cornerstone defensive tackles or defensive, end type, outside linebacker type players and the impact that they could have on your football team. So if they're trying to win football games this year and not trying to, divide the fan base and keep them together, but to you guys' point, it's contextual in every situation, right? Like, you got to look at the team, you got to look at where their record is, because no one wants to part with, when things are good, right? The high probability of parting with somebody when, you're taking an L. And I think that you have to look at those teams that you guys mentioned, like Houston as well as Chicago. But I think that it's probably best in this situation right now, Johnny, to be aggressive, right? Considering the type of environment that it's in, that it is so close and that you do need to make, changes, because those issues that we talked about in terms of personnel, those aren't going away, and they need to be improved for this team to be competitive in the long run.
Well, Steve Keim is under a microscope for a lot of different reasons these days. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say Patrick Peterson is making his voice heard right now, going after the infamous general manager. Patrick Peterson may or may not be trending up just because by default he's on the Minnesota Vikings, a good team. Who else is trending up? Let's look at the Arizona Cardinals. The big three for this week, we just talked about it. It's J.J. Watt, 2 sacks, the birth of his daughter last week, model citizen. We love J.J. Watt here in the desert, and he's backing up his play on the field. It was around this time last year, knock on wood, gentlemen, that J.J. Watt went out basically for the rest of the regular season. It's great to see him. No injury concerns, has not missed, I don't think, any time this year after missing part of training camp. You love have 99 in the fold. How about Rondale Moore? We get on Rondale Moore. I get on Rondale Moore on this show frequently, mostly because of his usage, Bo. But to see him used, especially in the second half, ever so slightly vertically, and you're allowing Rondale Moore down the field in space, you can see where those kind of poor man Steve Smith's comps come from. He is physical. He breaks tackles. Yeah. You would love to see more of that moving forward.
That's Patrick Peterson.
Yeah.
That's Patrick Peterson.
That's right.
Once Rondale Moore, once Kliff unlocked that unused side of his play call sheet and started doing some vertical throws to Rondale Moore, my God, you got to kind of see that second rounder, why they loved him coming out of Purdue. Yeah, breaking the 3 tackles, right, guys? Once he got to this part of the play sheet that we've rarely ever seen, except against the Vikings, I mean, he had over 100 total yards from scrimmage. He had over 90 yards receiving, and he had 12 yards on the ground, and he had the touchdown, which was just electric. You love to see it. Yeah, we've been tough on him. Could he get on the playing field? He was poised for a big year, and then the hamstring kind of held him back. But he's starting to find the rapport with his quarterback. I talked to Kliff about that today. He said that was important, and then also talked to Rondale Moore. And I think, not only is Kyler and his reports growing, but also DeAndre Hopkins is giving him opportunities downfield just by being out there on the field, kind of serving as a decoy, just making plays and taking, the command of the opposing defense.
Guys, and I guess they knew more than we did. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, I've seen Rondale Moore for some time now, right? Back when my son was at Northwestern and saw him at Purdue, and I was just waiting for it to happen. I mean, I will say that there is a transition, right? A big transition from college to pro. So I wasn't sure, I mean, the jury was still out, but there were times that we see him get in space and he runs hard and he breaks tackle, NFL tackles, and he makes, Patrick Peterson look pedestrian, and he's holding on to a string of T-shirt for 12 yards, right? So when we see him do those athletic things, it's almost very similar to Isaiah Simmons, right? I know that Isaiah Simmons is a first-round, draft pick, but Rondale Moore being a second-round draft pick, there's a high expectation that he's going to be a difference maker. So when he gets the ball in space and he makes those plays and he has nearly, 100 yards receiving or over 100 yards combined, it's almost what you expect to happen. And the Cardinals are going to need that. I think the only thing missing yesterday was that run game. But to see Rondale Moore flash like he did, it bodes well for the Cardinals, given that we're only 8 games into the season.
Damien, you mentioned the run game. It is trending down this week for the Arizona Cardinals. Among other things, look at that right there. Run game did not look good. I did not think Benjamin hit the hole up and in as well as he could have. He and Darrell Williams tried to bounce too many things on the outside. But what plagued them yesterday, poor interior offensive line play. Billy Price looked like bust Billy Price out of Ohio State. Was not good yesterday, surrendered 2 to 3 sacks. And again, Billy was put in a position where hopefully he would never have to start. He's thrust into the lineup now. Rodney Hudson, presumably out this week. Who knows when he'll return? Billy Price may play the majority of the snaps at center the rest of the season. He did not look good. Leki Fotu did not look good. This is troubling for a couple different fronts, guys, because, the turnovers did not help this team. But they got their ass kicked on both lines of scrimmage yesterday. It was not good. They got rushed for over 160 yards on by Minnesota. And then on the flip side, you mentioned it, DA, Zadarius Smith. They ate up Kyler Murray and company, especially when they were able to pin their ears back in the fourth quarter. So it's disappointing that the Cardinals tried to fortify their line of scrimmage with Rodney Hudson and Justin Pugh, and they're gone. And then on the flip side, Leki Fotu's not getting it done. I love Watt and Zach Allen, but they can only do so much, Bo. It's like, where do the Cardinals go from here? Is it salvageable with their line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball?
We need to play better. We need to execute better. We need to call better plays as far as the run game goes. No, I mean, as far as that's tough. I mean, they were Jekyll and Hyde all last year. It felt like they beat the ass of Seattle and San Francisco. They won the line of scrimmage. They won in Los Angeles against the Rams. They were the more physical team. But, and I know our guy Howard Balzer is going to come out with an article soon about the offensive line play and how many different combinations that the Arizona Cardinals have had to use, especially over the last 5 weeks. I mean, when you have to call back, you have to bring out a retirement Justin Pugh. You have to bring out a retirement Rodney Hudson. Like, the continuity is fine, right? It's good to have leaders and guys who have experience, but at the same time, it was pretty much inevitable that those guys were going to miss time. And now, not to really have a good fallback plan or contingency plan on the offensive line. It's to take, Sean Harlow was a failure. You had to go out and get a free agent off the streets in Billy Price, and then you had to pull off the trade for Cody Ford. Those are two guys that made their second starts in a row, and it's just, and then you had Josh Jones making his first start. I mean, you essentially had 3/5 of your offensive line that were brand new to this team for the most part against a ferocious pass rush attack. And you have to give credit where credit's due. That's another Kliff Kingsbury phrase there. So if you're playing Kliff bingo, you might have just gotten it. As far as, utilizing a guy like Zadarius Smith, you would have thought he was going to be coming off the edge, guys, and he was going up the gut and just absolutely exposing Billy Price. You got to imagine that that's going to be something that's going to happen starting against Seattle this week and then continuing until those guys stop it.
And guys, the reason why it's concerning to me, because it's where the play starts at, right? Like, I mean, at the beginning of every offensive play, right? It's a center quarterback exchange, and on the defensive line, that's where everything starts. So if you don't have that confidence at your offensive line or your defensive line position, I mean, isn't that going to be – that's where the game is played, at the line of scrimmage. So you can't protect your quarterback or you can't protect your secondary. Good thing that they're so talented and they've been making plays and making up for some of those errors, but you need to get better at those positions. But, guys, despite all that, without being Debbie Downer, the inability to run the ball, the multiple penalties that they had, and 3 turnovers, the team was 1 score away from winning this football game. So and they played and that's what people don't want to give respect to the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings. What are they, 6-1 right now? They've lost one game, and it's hard to win in the National Football League. So to play on the road, turn the ball over 3 times, not run the ball, and still have a chance to win. Those are the good things. That's like the optimism in me. But I also know that, hey, you got to get better at protecting the quarterback. You got to be able to run the ball, and you got to be able to stop the run. Right? Those turnover, that was really uncharacteristic of the Cardinals of what we've seen yesterday. They haven't been turning over the football. They haven't been getting penalties. And, one issue that has been constant is calling unnecessary timeouts. Kliff, so was that discussed today in your presser? Just not being able to get the play called in, to Kyler or not? Is that going to be improved from week to week, day to day?
Yeah, basically what Kliff Kingsbury said about that, and it was discussed, a couple different questions were sent his way about that, and he fielded them, and he said that they basically have to get back to the basics. They're trying to huddle up at times just to be able to get the play call in. That really, truly seems, DA, to be a huge issue for this Arizona Cardinals
scary.
Team.
That's scary
to hear. It is. Yeah, it was. And to hear that type of transparency.
It is.
Yeah. To hear that type of transparency means that they're probably, out of, any type of solutions, and they're just searching and seeking it out. We heard from Rondell Moore about that. We heard from Kliff Kingsbury himself that they are really searching for it as far as how to get the play call in, get it in time, and they're not burning timeouts. And what's interesting is they've only been penalized once this entire season for delay a game, and that was the one in overtime. Or I'm sorry, on the 2-point conversion that they ended up successfully.
Because they called timeouts.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they called timeouts, and you would have thought that they might have been in a way better position at the end of that game, seeking, trying to 1 score away. I know it's 8 points, and you still got to get the 2-pointer, but it would have been nice to have at least 1 or 2 of those extra timeouts in your back pocket, and they didn't, because this is a team that continues to have issues getting the play call in, getting it, talked to, or given to the players in that huddle, and then getting that ball snapped in time, and that's something they need to figure out, and that's something that Kliff says it starts on Wednesday with getting back to the basics.
This team, that just shows you they're missing key players. Yes, it's not a talent issue. The Cardinals, I believe, are as talented as the Vikings, and more so in specific areas. I would take Kyler Murray every day of the week over Kirk Cousins. This team is not buttoned up. They are not buttoned up to play every Sunday, Monday, Thursday. They look out of sorts. They look dejected. No, I will not call a timeout, Kliff Kingsbury. I'm going in on you right now, Multiverse Kliff Kingsbury. They need to figure out a way to be more prepared, whether it's more time spent on that kind of thing, as Bo Brock mentions. But again, we're in week 9 of his 4th year, and they don't look prepared or organized. I don't know what they can do to fix that at this point. DA, I'm not in an NFL locker room, nor have I ever been a part of an NFL team. But that to me, it's like you are not close in my mind if you're talking about going back to basics. If it's a tweak here, a tweak there, subbing in somebody else. But I watch this team, as does everybody else, every week. They look unprepared to start games. They fall behind quickly. Much of that is on the offense, which is what Kliff Kingsbury's baby is. So you've got 12 to 15 scripted plays every week, and the best Kyler Murray looks is when he's off script, when he's doing his own thing, 2nd, 3rd, 4th quarter. So that is why this team, through 8 games, has not scored an offensive touchdown to begin a game. They're the only team in the NFL, DA, that has not scored a touchdown in the first quarter.
Johnny, it's about being locked in, and these problems will persist unless it gets corrected.
Yes.
What I don't like, you have media people, relating, throughout the game that, hey, they had to call a timeout there because one player wasn't ready and didn't know the personnel to go into the football game. So to me, that is just mind blowing that you cannot know just the situational awareness to be prepared when your personnel group is called up or when you're going to be in the football game. And as I said, the word, what the youngins are using is locked in. This whole team needs to be locked in. I know that there's a lot of, distractions out there, but the bottom line is the bottom line. The bottom line is about football games and protecting, your I'd say your career, right? Sustainability in the National Football League, and that's coming prepared and being able to execute. And when you're not prepared, you can't execute because you don't know what's going on. And I think that's what we've seen on a consistent basis. We got some dogs, right? You got D-Hop. It doesn't matter. He's, 7-11. He's always open. But when Kyler's not on the same page with Kliff, we've seen unnecessary timeouts happen. We've seen it impact the game where, 152 left in the game? They had the ball and no timeouts. I mean, how can that happen where we've seen, you go, Johnny, as you mentioned, you play Seattle. You're right. Athletically talented across the board. Where does Seattle win at?
Line of scrimmage
and coaching.
Yep.
I mean, well, there you go. Line of scrimmage and possibly their running back. But it comes down to coaching, knowing those situations, knowing when to having a feel for the game, not being solely based on analytics. And I'm not saying that's what Kliff is doing, Kliff and company is doing, but it just seems at times that this team is, and I don't want to call it undisciplined, but it's just they're not on the same page in terms of the rhythm of the game. And I think that that's been a hindrance of this offense because we all know, we watch this, this team intimately, that they have talent. Talent is not the question. You have one of the most talented quarterbacks, you have a dog and wide receiver, and you have a young, stud in Rondell Moore, and waiting for, Hollywood Brown to return. And who knows with Robbie Anderson. So they have talent. It's just a matter of, can they all get on the same page and make it happen consistently?
It's been the same guy. It's been the same guy that's been relaying the play calling for the last 4 years now, and it continues to be an issue where, on the defensive side of the football, they went through that green dot all through training camp. I mean, it was at one point Jalen Thompson, and it was, next it was Isaiah Simmons who got that removed after just a horrible week one, and now green dot belongs to Zaven Collins. And there don't seem to be too many, communication issues with the play getting called in and the defense having to, get their guys ready and in position. They did call a timeout on defense, I think, late in the first half yesterday, but you don't see it nearly as much. Not nearly as much. I'd say 2/3 of those timeouts, on average, are being used on the offense, not being prepared, and that clock ticking down, and them, staring down a potential delay of game penalty. And then, to come out of a timeout in a crucial situation, in a red zone situation yesterday on third down, and have your center, snap the ball into the chest of your quarterback who wasn't ready for the snap. That's inexcusable.
Yeah. It's inexcusable. It's also inexcusable to not be a member of GoPHNX.com. Well, not really, but you should do it anyway to read the many great works of my many talented peers, our peers here at GoPHNX, including Howard Balzer. Smash that promo code Howard when you sign up today. And guess what? If you sign up for a year membership, friends, you get a free t-shirt, for free from the PHNX merchandise locker. You can get the Hollywood Hills sign on top Camelback Mountain. Limited quantities. Get it right now. You can also get the celebratory touchdown t-shirt. I've got both en route to me. Can't wait to sport them. If you see PHNX gear throughout the valley, and of course you do. It's on. I'm watching Suns games. I'm seeing PHNX gear. I'm watching Coyotes games. There's gear everywhere. If you want to join our family here, check out GoPHNX.com, the PHNX merchandise locker.
I love the confidence from our guys. Mikey Cardinal saying this team will improve and believe in my Cardinals. It's interesting. I mean, we talk about it, DA, how close they were despite the issues as far as the turnovers, the penalties, the timeouts that they had to burn. They lose by 8 points. You look at how the schedule that they opened up with. I mean, the undefeated Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs. You've got the one-loss Vikings. I mean, it's been a pretty tough start for the Arizona Cardinals, and for them to sit at 3-5 and an opportunity in this wide-open division is absolutely insane. You would have said if this team was 3-5 at this point in the season, that their chances at the postseason are long gone, and that's not the case still. Really going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 24 hours, Johnny. Does the team pull the trigger on a deal? Do they try to help that defense out? Vance has earned it. I think we've seen enough given to this offense. Yes. They should have enough there to compete. Yes. Can they get a deal done for pass rush help or somebody in the interior of that defensive line? I know we're going to be talking about it tomorrow.
We're excited about the NFL trade deadline. You should be excited about our friends on Underdog Fantasy. You can search in the App Store, click on the link in the show notes, sign up with promo code PHNX. That's promo code PHNX. And guess what? Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code PHNX. Get in on the action today. I had some sweet winnings on Underdog Fantasy, betting simply the over for DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going to do that, Bo Brack, Damien Anderson, every week moving forward. In the meantime, go Suns, says Omar Lopez in the chat. Absolutely. Make some money using Underdog Fantasy. All right, friends. Hope everybody has a happy and safe Halloween. Do us a quick favor. Give us a treat. Smash that like button on this video. Help share on the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to PHNX Sports on YouTube. Subscribe to the premier #1 Arizona Cardinal podcast. That's the PHNX Cardinal podcast. We love you all. We will get through this. We will be better. We will be on standby, that being Bo Brack and myself, should the Cardinals make a last-minute trade before the deadline tomorrow. For Multiverse Kliff Kingsbury, a.k.a. Bo Brack, Damien Anderson, peak Damien Anderson, handsome guy. I'm Johnny Venerable. We're going to be back later this week. It's Seahawk week. It's divisional week. May the force be with you. Bye, everybody.